Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse here, and boy, it's been a heck of a day already. um, but yeah, welcome back to Illegally Cited, and this video is kind of a channel update, but it is also I'm going to be talking about a few events, especially the webpage that we're looking at right here. Just kind of giving my thoughts over the last couple of days of the Game Accessibility Conference, aka GAConf, and I will put a link in the description below to the playlist because all sessions are already up on their YouTube channel, not just their 7-8 hour live streams, but their each individual session, so you can watch them more piecemeal. And it is heck yeah, it was a fun show. My sleeping schedule is completely screwed up right now, but hey, you know what? That's okay. Anyway, circling back, quick channel update. Nothing too extraordinary on the channel itself. I've got quite a few, well, many games lined up and many things lined up. I just got to get around to either unlocking them or recording them or playing them and then recording them. So lots of stuff to come there. Both I got some more accessible games to cover. I've got some low vision games to cover. I've got some games that maybe aren't totally blind accessible but do have some accessibility features that are still worth exploring, and that I think will be helpful even as a low vision user. So we're going to check those out. I still haven't even gotten around to recording any PlayStation 5 footage. I would love to do at least maybe a look at Miles Morales and Astrobot, because those two alone have some really nice, just, well, Astrobot I wouldn't say has accessibility features in it, but man, just I could talk about that game is just so charming and cool and fun, and the controller, the way it uses the DualSense is just incredible, and I really hope that other companies really start taking advantage of that because that's one of the really unique aspects of the system, and I want to see more things, like I said, take advantage of it. I have been coming back to Twitch a little bit more often. I've done 2 or 3 streams in the last few weeks. I was going to do one toward the end of the month, but I was kind of reaching my bandwidth cap, so I really didn't want to do a stream that weekend because I didn't know if I would get too close or go over or whatnot. So I just did a stream archive for Blind Drive. You can watch that one at twitch.tv/illegally cited. Should be up there for a little while longer yet. And it is also up on the YouTube channel, but it won't be unlocked for you guys for a while because we're working through our last 3 or 4 Mixer archives, and then we'll transition over to Twitch. So, like I said, I'm only releasing these on Mondays, so got a couple more weeks of Mixers, and then all of those are done. Riley's not on any of the other Mixers that are left. By that point, she had gone back home, but like I said, I'll still be doing those archives. And then we'll move on to Twitch, and there's quite a few streams of those. So the streams will continue on Mondays. And for anyone new to the channel, I do unlock videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Mondays are stream archives, and then Wednesday and Saturdays are anything else. Could be VR games, VR accessibility, VR experiences, iOS, games and apps, mainstream games, audio games, hardware reviews, any number of different things. These events and update videos, you never know what'll happen. But yeah, 3 days a week. Anyone who is new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. Definitely subscribe if you find something interesting here that you might find interesting. I know I've been talking, huge shout out, by the way. I talked a little bit about it, I think, in last month's video, because I think I had just gotten into it then. Clubhouse. I wasn't sure how much I would like it, and To be honest, I haven't explored Clubhouse a lot, but I have been using it a lot because there's been one or two rooms, one especially, that I've just found to be really, really fun. There's the Game Industry Cocktail Hour, and just a really friendly group of people. Just any kind of topics go. There's been fun conversations, really informative conversations, people helping each other. We've talked accessibility many times. I've been a big part of that. We've played some kind of interactive shenanigan like games on like Friday nights and stuff, using the audio that the app has. So it's been kind of cool. Made some connections there on social media and been talking in that room. So like I said, I am on Clubhouse, but unless I do personally know you, I'm not going to be necessarily giving out invites, just because it's one of those where you actually have to go by phone number, and you really have to kind of vet who you want to come in. Not that I don't trust some people, but it's just I explained it during last month's video as well. But it has been an interesting experience. Clubhouse has. And it has improved, even since I've started being on it, it has improved its voiceover accessibility. So some of the things that used to be really troublesome generally tend to work a bit better. So most things that I need to do work pretty well. The main thing that I really do wish is I wish it was easy to tell, because you really can't tell who's speaking unless you jump through. I don't even remember what hoops you're supposed to jump through. But I wish there was an easy way to tell who is speaking. But I've been having some fun with that. So yeah, the channel, Twitch, been pretty active on Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. It's been a really busy, kind of interesting month. I've had some online shenanigans here and there. Some of my I've had a couple times where PSA here, guys, if you have an account and if they offer two-factor authentication, for the love of God, do it, because I think it was not Patreon. Was it Patreon? Yeah, it might have been. It was either Patreon or one of my... No, it wasn't my Kickstarter. It had to have been Patreon. There were like 2 or 3 times where I woke up in the morning and I literally had like 6 to 10 attempts of people. I don't know why you wanted to get into my Patreon account, but apparently they were trying to get in and they couldn't, because I woke up to just a lot of these two-factor authentication messages. So I changed my password, and then they thankfully stopped coming. But I've had to deal with that. I've had to deal with a couple of other online shenanigans and a couple of potential account password change issues and things like that, just with people being stupid and messing around and everything, and just a few other online nonsense. But nothing that a few potential block a few people on social media, unfollow a couple people on social media, just whatever. It's been a weird time for about 2 weeks there. But that's kind of a quick channel update. I do want to touch on a few events, because boy howdy, there have been some events, and there are going to be more events. So I want to go back all the way to CSUN, because I think I talked about it a little bit last time, but hell, I can't remember. Like I said, linear time is almost meaningless at this point. The funny thing is I think I didn't really talk about it much because there really wasn't much information that came out of it. Usually there's at least a couple products that are like, oh my God, this is a really cool thing. It's the year of Braille, like Braille displays, or it's the year of, I don't know, just something really cool. And the only pretty universal thing that I would hear about is the BrailleSense Polaris 6 upgrade. So that's coming out presumably this summer, and you'll have to pay, to get your hardware upgraded if you have that device. You have to send it in and whatnot. Like I said on the channel before, I'm not super big into. I love Braille. I love Braille displays. Don't get me wrong. I love Braille. I love Braille displays. But I've never been super sold on the super expensive note takers, especially in the age of like cell phones and tablets and computers. That I mean, yes, that has its own quirks. Like iOS can temporarily break Braille display support, which I totally understand. And if you are a heavy Braille user, I totally get that that would be extremely frustrating. Trust me, when I couldn't use Magnifier for like a month because something with Oculus broke it and I had to do a bunch of weird stuff to even get Magnifier to work, yeah, it was frustrating. But, I mean, honestly, the BrailleSense Polaris 6 is really the main thing that I remember hearing pretty universally on websites or social media. I'm sure there was a bunch of other things happening, but I didn't virtually attend this year. I didn't. Our company didn't pay to virtually attend this year. And honestly, I don't know that there really is much right now. There's a few things with apps. There's a few things happening with the LiDAR sensor, but again, you have to have the iPhone 12 Pro or Pro Max for those to work. So I don't know if that's going to trickle down if they do the 13 or whatever they're going to call it this fall. I don't know if it's going to, trickle down to some of the, if they do if they do four phones again this fall, like they're predicting, are all of them going to have LiDAR because it's gotten cheap enough where they can put it in more of the sensors? I'd love to see that. But, I do want to play with that. Honestly, I think the next couple of things for blind visually impaired, I think the next couple exciting areas, there's two that I can really think of immediately. One is going to be, actually, I can think of almost kind of three. There's a lot of stuff happening with indoor navigation, and there was a Blind Bargains, I think it was a Blind Bargains podcast on that. And they're kind of doing it in a way where you don't have to use hardware beacons, which I think is very exciting because, yes, you might still have to have somebody go through a space the first time to kind of set up what the space is going to be, but not having to purchase dozens of beacons or keep them charged or keep them operational. That's actually going to be huge. So, if we can chip away and add, a lot of these, especially public places, submit things for airports and malls and I don't know, just a lot of different places. Like in the next 5 years or so, if we can get some of that stuff done, I think that'll be really, really helpful. Because yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to just go to like a regular mall. Like I don't like to go to the mall very often, but when I do, it's because hey, I have a few specific needs I really want to go. But where are the stores, especially in a big mall where you have multiple levels? Just to be able to like get immediate guidance with your phone, that would be really, really helpful. But indoor navigation, things with LiDAR, I think the LiDAR thing is going to be, they're going to start doing some interesting things with that. I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to be. And then I also think that AI is going to be the next sort of next stage. We're already seeing that with things like Seeing AI and similar types of apps. Being able to like OCR text and recognize handwriting and figure out what is in a room or take a picture of an object and it can figure out what it is, identifying pictures that are not labeled on a website or a tweet or something like that. Curious to see what sort of other AI assistants, AI features are going to happen, because I'm sure there's things that I can't even think of, you know. I'm sure there's all kinds of different AI uses that I haven't even considered that might be helpful for blind or visually impaired users, whether it uses the camera, whether it doesn't, whether it's on your computer or your phone, or going to my other big thing, I really think there's going to be if somebody can find a way to make it catch on, and it might be a few years out yet, but if anybody has a good chance of starting it, it's going to be Apple, I think, just because people flock to them for whatever reason. I think that smart glasses, do something with like the Bose frames, but actually have a tiny camera in them. You think of Google Glass. That really, they were trying to hype that up. That was going to be a big thing, but then it kind of really faded away. There was a lot of pushback on it because of privacy issues and things like that. And then it kind of came back. I think there's some forms of it out there in some capacity, but I don't really hear about Google Glass being used much. You have things like the Envision glasses, which I think are interesting and potentially very useful because, like I said, if you can, you have things like Envision AI, Seeing AI, you have any number of these other apps. Right now, you have to hold your phone, but if you can walk down the street and let's say maybe hit a button on the side of your glasses or tap them almost like you have touch controls on AirPods or something, just be walking down the street and then like, oh, I'm in text mode and I looked at a sign and it's going to tell me what that is. Or if I look at a building and go, oh, that is the post office, that is the coffee shop, whatever. I'm like, oh, how cool would that be? So there's, just being hands free, especially if you're a cane user or a guide dog user, and you want to be able to carry things, like you can't do that and use your phone at the same time. So, yeah, having some sort of glasses set up, and even for myself, where I sometimes use a cane, sometimes I don't. But even just like I said, being able to look around at something, or even have some sort of cool way to receive either haptic feedback or audible feedback or even visual feedback if there's a combination with some headsets, like those glowy arrows that you can use on a Google phone where you put in a route in Google Maps and it shows glowy arrows almost like you would be in a video game. Lots of cool augmented reality potential for wearables and things like that. So those are some areas I think that could be really interesting in the next few years for blind. We're still kind of on this. There hasn't been that one thing that has really caught on yet. Like I said, Envision glasses, I'm potentially intrigued about. And if you listen to, it's probably a month or two ago now, but there was an episode where I was a guest on the Blind Abilities podcast, and we were actually talking with someone from Envision. And, one of the things that we were talking about was, well, that's great, but they are still kind of expensive right now, and really you're primarily using them with one app. And what I want is just like I can go buy an iPhone, an Android phone, and it doesn't matter. Like, I can go buy an iPhone and I can download a gazillion apps that use the camera. I can do OCR. I can, I could use Seeing AI. I could use Envision. I could use the camera. I could use magnifier. I could use OCR apps, Voice Stream Scanner, KNFB Reader. I'm not buying this one device and only able to use one or two apps on it. What I want is I want these glasses or wearables to be like their own platform, or even like the Apple Watch. Like I can run third-party apps on it, but have voiceover support with it. So I'm waiting really for a platform, maybe for the cost to go down, but even if the cost was a little higher, I might consider it there were, if it was more of an open platform to where I could use whatever compatible app I wanted with those glasses or with that wearable. And again, there has to be this, we have to fight this sort of stigma of, the reason that one of the reasons that Google Glass kind of faded is because there was all this kind of concern, what they call them glass holes, where, if people were trying to use them to discreetly spy and like record other people, Just you're in public, like, and just knowing that somebody could be watching you or recording you at any time just by looking at you. Yeah, I can see where that would definitely be a bit unsettling or creepy or whatever adjective you want to use. I mean, that being said, yes, it is a lot easier if all you have to do is look at somebody, but I mean, you can be pretty discreet now. Everybody has their phone, so you can even just look like you're using your phone and kind of discreetly point the camera at something where you're not supposed to use a camera, and probably, as long as your flash isn't on, possibly get away with it, or who knows. If you're not even doing video, you get a recording app and people are recording audio about you and posting it on the internet without you knowing or without your consent. People do that all the time. So, you know, I mean, I get it from like with the glasses thing. I totally get it. But I think we're almost kind of there. They're just making it, I guess, that one step easier to be able to do something like that with a wearable. But, that stuff is pretty easy because people, I mean, and it can be used for good. If there's some awful thing happening, like, you see these stories about people getting beat up or cops, not, any kind of social justice sort of a thing. Those can be good, but then, you have it just the opposite where, like I said, people record you either without your knowledge or without your permission, and then post it on the internet, video or audio or whatever it happens to be, which sucks. But those are the trends that I think, like I said, there's nothing really out there that I know of yet. We have the Envision glasses, but like I think with AI, all kinds of different sensors, like your LiDAR, and then wearables. I think combine those and we're going to get some really interesting and convenient tools for the blind and visually impaired in the next several years. We kind of almost just have to wait for a few hardware things to kind of catch up again. And then I think, if people can start making software for it, I think there could be some really cool things, or even just being able to port, like I said, seeing AI to a wearable, something like that. So that's really all I can think of for CSUN, because I haven't really heard much of anything from friends, from social media. Not much for podcasts yet. I know Blind Bargains is going to have some stuff here coming up in the next few weeks, but nothing that I know of that's like super like, oh my, because if there would have been something, we would have heard like, oh my god, this is the most coolest cutting edge thing ever, but there really hasn't been. But now we get to the last couple of days in the Game Accessibility Conference, GAConf, and I have their playlist on YouTube here for the GAConf EU, or the European Game Accessibility Conference, and it was 2 days. And of course, being in North America, I was several hours behind. And so if I wanted to watch it live and participate in the Discord, I had to get up at a little before 4 a.m. Did not like that in particular, especially when it was 2 days in a row. Now my sleeping schedule is probably going to be, like I said, really messed up. But I feel sorry for poor Tara. Poor Tara. She had to get up at like 2 in the morning because she was 2 hours behind me, and she was the host. Oh, man. Yeah. And I got to say, good job. She was the host, and she nailed it. So shout out to Tara. She did awesome. So did all the speakers. And everyone putting it on. Of course, my man Ian. He's, a big... he's the other kind of co-founder of this and really got it going and keeping it going. So just shout out to everybody who made it possible. All the volunteers who helped out in Discord. All the speakers and everything. I do want to quickly... I'm going to turn magnifier on. I'm going to run down the speakers, just to give you an idea. And I tweeted a bunch of these. This is going to be Wednesday's video, so I tweeted some of my highlight sessions after the conference yesterday. And we have the introduction from Ian Hamilton, and this is things that just happened since last fall's North American conference. All of this stuff in this video happened within the last 6 months, which is incredible. It's fantastic. So definitely check that out. Scourgebringer. This is a 2D platformer action game that is kind of difficult. It's meant to be rather difficult, but they really, I love the way they sort of just incorporated different accessibility features into the design to maintain the challenge, but give players who need it some assistance and help with just trying to be able to play the game and make it easier. So, not just by saying, oh, well, here's like a total easy mode or something, but just really thinking through how they designed the game itself. Very interesting. I did pick up the game, so this is again one of these titles that I'm going to cover on the channel at some point when I get around to playing it. I had it in my wish list before. I saw a Giant Bomb quick look about it a ways back, but I didn't really know about the accessibility features. But again, if they're going to support it, heck yeah, I want to support them, and as should you, if you can play it. Yes, the usability of accessibility. This is the talk from Sony, and I found it to be really interesting, both from a user perspective, but especially if you're a developer. Watch this video. If you have any interest in being a part of the game industry, if you're a consultant, if you're a advocate, if you're whatever, this is just a great video. And the quick premise of it was that basically they went from this whole checklist style of accessibility verification to more of a overall usability and human-centered approach, because there would be cases where like, oh, something might technically pass and they'd say it might be accessible, but in reality it really wasn't still good enough and it wasn't accessible for somebody. Good at like I'll use one of their examples. So they said, okay, well, there was a place where maybe a game had you could go back and review the tutorials, the help system. But the problem was you couldn't just pause the game and bring it up. You actually had to go into a certain part of the world and talk to a character, and they would be able to then give you the help that you need. Well, that doesn't do me any good if I'm in the middle of a mission and forgot, oh, how do I do this move again? So technically, yes, the help was there, so it would pass, but then usability wise, well, that doesn't still make a lot of sense. So watch that video, is really good. This was really interesting too. So disabled developers, not just the players, but like, hey, we want to get more people included in development. So, game engines and, their experiences with just being able to be a part of the development process and stuff. So that was a really good panel. A lot of great, every one of these sessions just had a lot of different information in it. This was a cool flashback to like an early 80s. It's called Mavis. This kind of multi-accessibility computer system from like the early 80s. And it was just a kind of a narrated historical session, short session, which was really, like I said, quite interesting. Definitely check that out. Mental maps. Yeah, kind of the mind's eye. So like if you can't, let's say that you can't put a mental map in your head, like you just can't, like if you look at a on-screen map and then you take it away and you just can't, if I tell you to imagine a beach, imagine a forest, you can kind of put something into your head, but not everybody can. And it was just a really fascinating talk. And, even some of the stuff that would apply for that, again, and you'll see that with a lot of these sessions, what might apply to one area also can benefit some of these accessibility features or options can also really benefit others. So there's a lot of things that weren't necessarily geared toward vision, but they're like, oh, that would actually be really helpful for me too, because, I like having the, let's say, okay, I can't visualize a map, so having some sort of an in-world guide, so I don't have to keep pausing the screen and try to or memorize directions like a GPS. One, turn left. Two, go 3 blocks, and then go right. How many times have I said I wanted in-world navigation in open world games? So that's that session. Gaming for good. That was another really interesting, like business, just kind of a business focused session. In this little chart here of like 51 people or 51% of people said that they would that their purchasing decisions had something to do with accessibility, and I totally believe it. If a game has a certain feature, if it lacks a certain feature, and a lot more people are asking those questions. Hey, why aren't there subtitles? Why don't I have controller remapping? Or why can I remap the keyboard but not a controller? Or any number of things. Does it have text to speech? Whatever. There's just a lot of, again, great information there. Big brain. Cognitive difficulties. Yeah, so like getting, just like if you were getting overwhelmed in a game, or just being able to clearly present information. Lots of stuff in there. Let's see, driving accessibility advancements. Oh yeah, Watch Dogs. Remember I covered that as one of the last fall's Ubisoft games. So they talked a bit about the process and how they implemented some of those accessibility features in that game. And again, I really like finding like specific, I like hearing about specific game examples and showing like, oh, that's how they did it, and that's why they came to that decision. That's why they tried to implement a feature this way. So that was really cool. Let's see, what do we got? Accessible game design. Oh, the infinite play one. Yes. A guy and his 2 kids, both kind of like multiple disabilities, or kid with his kids, and they were cute. But they, looking at things where like having infinite time, or having options to, break down some of the barriers. So like, if you have a degenerative disease or degenerative disability, I mean, he made a lot of really great points, like things that have really strict time limits, or, button mashy things, or just like things that just some people can't necessarily keep up with. But again, like I said, well, he, took it to the extreme of like, somebody's only really able to hit like one button, let's say, or be able to only react so fast or so many times or whatever. A lot of what he said, though, can apply to other disabilities, or not even with a disability. Like, he's, a lot of the games that his kids like to play are creative and relaxing and kind of open, because that's what they need. But again, thinking about how many times have I said on a channel, hey, these VR titles or these walking simulators or something. How many times have I come home from work, or even working from home? I've worked all day. I might want to play a game, but I don't want to. I don't really want to play a thinking game. I don't want to play a shooter. I just want to be immersed in a story or explore an environment. So having those types of having those types of games out there. I mean, sometimes it's a nice chill thing, or maybe I can just kick back and create something in like Minecraft or any number of games. So again, that was a really kind of a neat. I like the way he presented that and just kind of gave really specific examples, and yeah, that was a really good one. Bridging the gap between, oh yes, the academia one. Yes, like kind of looking at gaming research. And again, there's so much, I can't even really describe this session, partly because I was still waking up, or trying to wake up, with a bunch of caffeine at 4 o'clock this morning. But it was interesting. They gave some good tips for like trying to find research on different topics and stuff, or if there's academic research in a disability area, connecting that to the end user, connecting it to like actual developers and reading that. And, unfortunately, not all research that gets done in academia gets translated to a final consumer product. And I can't fully confirm this, but I did hear, sadly, I've talked many times about seeing VR. I talked with somebody fairly recently, and I don't know that it's officially canned, but I don't know because that was a product of like some internal Microsoft research, and they were doing prototypes and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's very possible they could use it in some sort of other iteration, or put it into that type of technology into something else. But it sounds like trying to hold our breath, hoping for some sort of final consumer usable version of seeing VR is probably not going to be a thing. So as much as I want it to be, as much as I've been hoping it would be, and it has been a while since they've even released anything about it. So I think we have to almost put our hopes to bed that that product, at least in its current form, is ever going to see the light of day. I'm still going to reference it though, because if somebody else wants to do something like that, I think the idea is still absolutely fantastic. And, while it's a fix instead of natively being accessible, I would still very much appreciate it, and it would solve, or at least help, very much help, with the vast majority of VR problems that I continually talk about. Um, oh yes. Okay, this is the one, accessibility and agility. There's a really small developer creating this game called Ecstasy, but it's spelled weird. It's like EKSTASY. It's like a, and he had a little trailer for it in the beginning of the session. I bought it on Steam after I saw it. I'm like, oh, cool. Think of like a Tetris well with blocks, falling blocks, combined with the timeline of Luminous. So, good lord, Luminous meets Tetris meets accessibility. Count me in, man. That is going to be a game that I'm absolutely going to take a look at in the next couple of weeks, or not even the next couple of days. Once I get my, maybe even this evening. Who knows? But that is another one that I'll want to show you guys on the channel at some point because I'm very intrigued. But I love his approach and how he's thinking about accessibility. And we had other blind low vision people in the Discord chat and talking about like, can we, every game, if there was a specific game session, he'd be like, is this playable by a totally blind person? Can we do text to speech? Can we, like whatever. So I didn't have to do all of the heavy lifting in that area. But it was nice hearing some of the responses because they're like, oh well, yes, we wanted to do that, but we ran out of time because we're such a small studio, or we're planning on it in a future update if we can, or if nothing else, if we can't add it to our current game going forward, that is absolutely something we are going to heavily try to focus on, or at least try to have that feature in for the next game. So again, there's a lot of positivity overall, that kind of a thing. What do we got here? Growing a tree from wall. Oh yes, cap games. Yeah, basically this was about like making events and things accessible. Again, this was just packed with all kinds of information, and I just don't think I could do the description justice. So definitely check that one out. But that one had a lot of interesting information, not just on games themselves, but like events and stuff. Um, oh, the deaf and hard of hearing panel. Yep, that was also quite interesting. And, again, some of the things, there's the stuff that really transfers over. I love these panels because you get to hear other people's experiences and things like that. So just having these panels both days was really cool. What do we got here? Oh yes, dystrophia. I forget how to say it. Oh, just the. I can't. Dystrophia gaming. Um, this one, God, there was a lot. I mean, this was a really interesting session because, you know, like I said, while I don't have some of the problems that he does, it was super interesting hearing his experiences, and not just the experiences, but like the suggestions. And one of the main things that they were, that a few of these sessions talked about was fatigue. And yeah, I don't have muscle fatigue necessarily, movement fatigue, but eye fatigue, man. Why, that's one of the things where I keep talking about having text to speech, because if I get a squint and try to read tiny text while I'm trying to use an upgraded skill tree or sort items in my inventory or browse a shop or something, that gets tiring and your eyes kind of get to hurt. You can get a headache if you play too long. So I mean, there are a lot of people even in the chat just talking about the way they get fatigued, and the way these accommodations or the way these features and customizations can really help with that. So again, just in a lot of just pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Not abrupt, but really just to the point. Like, hey, I'm just going to tell you the way it is, and just a lot of good insight from that session. I really did like that one. Connecting with players with disabilities. Oh, this was the Candy Crush one. Yeah, so I have not tried Candy Crush because I was a little concerned about its monetization. And it shows even on the thumbnail here, like the options screen. I was looking at it, and there really isn't too much for visual, but there's like screen shake and disabling some of the graphic-y features and things like that. But the best thing that they did in this game that I would love to see other developers implement as a standard, right front and center when you play the game, they have this like submit feedback button. They have like this blatant thing that says, "Hey, accessibility," and they have a specific like email where you can submit how you are having trouble with the game. And they will not only take the feedback, but they will, put it in their queue, and then they will actually keep continuing to contact with you, ask you for further information if needed, give you updates if like, hey, maybe we tried to address this. How does this work for you now? But it was really cool because I forget exactly the wording that he said, but think about how many games there are that have reporting systems for abusive or toxic players or other technical issues. Oh, I'm using a PC game and the graphics don't work, or the game crashes, or whatever. Well, if they have that feedback, hey, why not a feedback button or a category that says, hey, here's some feedback on why I'm unable to play your game. Maybe I can't hear, and I'm missing information that I need that you are conveying audibly, or I can't see the text big enough. The contrast is not good enough in this area, or I don't know, the crosshair, like like I can't see the aiming thing, or whatever it happens to be. I just like the fact that he kind of broke it down as far as, well, we have all these other feedback things, so why, hey, why it just makes sense. If somebody buys a game and then they find they can't play it, they should be able to send feedback to say, hey, this is why I can't play it, and maybe this is some suggestions on how you could change that. I really like that approach, and I really like the fact that they kind of put it front and center. And he even commented that, like, there were some people, like a minority, I think it was, but it was a few people that were like, they were complaining, like, well, why are you shoving this accessibility in my face? I'm not disabled. How how do I remove this accessibility button, from just being, being prominent? And he's like, well, no, we're going to keep it there. And good on them. I got to give them respect for that. Like I said, I don't know what the monetization is like. Like I said, mobile games, I always get a little bit leery just for that whole factor, but I'll give them credit where credit is due. I like the way they're thinking. I like the way they're thinking as far as people being able to play their games. So I will download this to my iPad and actually give. And there are several versions of Candy Crush Saga available, and I did confirm this. I actually asked this in the chat. It is only Candy Crush Friends Saga. So the soda games and other stuff they don't have this yet. But Candy Crush Friends Saga does. So that is the one that you want if you want to see this accessibility stuff in action. Where do I go? If you are visually impaired, you're watching this channel. And all the things that I've complained about in open world games, first person games, third person games, just watch this. This is another one like that Sony one. Watch this video because she does a really good job of there's a few gameplay examples. There's something from Watch Dogs. There's something from Ghost of Tsushima. There's one example from Red Dead Redemption 2. But all the things that I've been saying, and even a couple that I didn't even think of, but just being able to get around in a game, in-world navigation, she could see, and she liked the little mini maps a little better. I go one step further and say I don't like the mini maps because I can't look at the road in the middle of the screen and then look down in the corner at the same time. Can't do it. But yeah, this was just a really good talk. And aside from text to speech, good on foot and vehicle navigation is one of the main things that I want as games get more complex and graphically higher fidelity like they are now. Those are two things I think that are super important for low vision, so definitely watch this one. Very, very good. Putting the assist mode in control. This is another specific game that I was gonna cover on the channel a while back, but I was having a little bit of trouble when I started it. I played it a little bit when Riley was still up here. Actually, I poked at it for an evening, and I was kind of like, I'm not really feeling it right now. Having a little bit of trouble seeing a couple of different things, and so I was dying and whatnot. But post-launch, they added an assist mode, and I knew about it, but I hadn't gotten around to playing it yet. But just watching their presentation and looking at all the features that they put in there, and they said this is meant to be kind of a, not confusing, but a challenging game where you and your character are figuring out what craziness is going on in the world. So they want to maintain that. They didn't just say, well, let's just slap an easy mode on there. Let's give, I don't remember the wording she said, but a really nice quote about just give them the tools, give people the tools that they need to access the game or to be able to play the game. We'll still give them the core experience, and we're not going to dumb it down for you, but just give you the tools to kind of level the playing field, essentially. Again, this just jumped pretty high onto my wanting to play list. And in this one up here, the waypoint or whatever, the one that I was talking about, the navigation one, I did install, there's a game called, oh crap, what is it called? I just went blank. I had it in my head a second ago. A Plague Tale: Innocence. And it's one of those that I meant to get around to and just hadn't yet. But I like the way she described how lighting in that game actually made the navigation easier to follow. And Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 did something similar. They actually commented on some of that in the commentary, in addition to some of the other visual effects. But a couple really great sessions there. Yes, updates from Xbox. This one was really cool because the Xbox accessibility guidelines that developers can use, they totally revamped it. They've added video examples, they've added like actual like text examples, they've added just all these categories for how to help fix the game, so that more people will be able to play it. But then they talked about another program where you have to be in the Seattle area right now, but because you're dealing with a lot of pre-release games and stuff and NDAs and everything, but like they have a program where developers can submit their games and basically Microsoft staff and paid disability advocates and consultants can go in and they will do basically like an accessibility review of games as they're in development. They said they can work with games that are currently in development, and if preferably, of course, they would want to start testing them as soon as possible so that they don't have to do as many fixes later. But they can do things pre or post release, and they're going to include, people with all kinds of different abilities and disabilities. So it's only been happening that has only been happening for like a month, and they've already had five tests so far. And there's actually been a good deal of interest, and so much so that they're talking about already ramping it up more because they can't keep up with the demand, which is fantastic on both accounts. So kudos to Microsoft. Game accessibility for eye gaze. This is a neat way to close the conference. 18-year-old girl basically only can control games by eye gaze. And just talking about her experience, she even uses like a communication device to speak. But her session was super interesting, and she too had actual like gameplay examples of how she would use eye gaze for some games, and specific like 3 or 4 different gaming examples. And man, she's so cool because she goes, yeah, I was trying to develop I forget what game it was for, but she was trying to develop some sort of on-screen keyboard interface so that she could do eye gaze with it. And she's like, yeah, that didn't really work. I put a bunch of time and effort into it. It didn't work. So what did I do? I went and learned XML, and I built my own. And then I said, fine, I'm just going to go build my own keyboard interface. And she did, and it works, and she plays the game. That's so cool. And she showed a clip where she was, I don't know if she made it or if somebody else made the interface for it. I think she's the one making it. Look at how complicated Flight Simulator is. That game is overwhelming to me. I love the idea of it, but just the thought of like the complexity of the controls and gauges and all the things you have to do and monitor, good lord. But she showed a demo of like she did an eye gaze thing where she was building at least an interface to where it's an early prototype right now, but she can take off and land a plane. And it showed the clip where she was in the air and she landed on the runway. It was a little bit of a rough landing, but not bad. And but yeah, just the fact that she was able to build something and then go in and land a plane in Flight Simulator, that's pretty rad. Not gonna lie. So, again, that was just a really interesting way to close the couple of days. Very, very cool. So, I mean, definitely check out these. It is worth looking at all of them, but even just like I said, there's probably the ones that I posted on Twitter, and I forgot to post the Microsoft one, but even that one I would add. But there's so many. There's not a bad one here. As usual, like I said, when I attended in person, Riley and I attended the European one 2019. I attended the virtual one last year. Every time I go, whether it's in person or virtual. Like, I love all the sessions. I love talking to the people in person or in Discord the last few times. It's been really fun. I've made a couple connections in LinkedIn and Twitter and all kinds of stuff. So that is kind of my experience with the Game Accessibility Conference. Don't know when the fall one in North America is going to be, but around probably 6 months from now, if I had to guess, maybe like in October-ish or something like that. And I will absolutely be there somehow, I hope. To wrap up the video, I do want to at least briefly mention an upcoming event, a little thing called E3. So right after I got out of GAConf this morning, I went and took a little bit of a nap. Yes, I did. And it was wonderful. But then I woke up to, I guess they did announce that they are doing an official E3 this year, and it's going to be from the 12th to the 15th for the public. But I guess they're doing a thing where certain people, if you are like a creator, a press or influencer, that kind of a thing, and I don't know what the qualifications are to be a part of that, but they're actually going to start that on the 7th. So like the press and everything are going to get access about, a few days early, and then the public will be able to come in, and it starts on like a Saturday. So like I think the 12th is like June 12th is on a Saturday, I think. So it's going to be a few days, and so the couple, I don't know exactly how this is going to work. Are they going to do their press briefings as part of the press thing that everybody can watch as usual? Are they going to do it on some of the, like the first couple of days of the public days? Are they going to have like playable demos that people can look at? Or maybe they'll have playable demos and have them available earlier to the press. Sony again is not going to be there, but you're going to have a lot of other companies, Microsoft and like I think EA, Ubisoft will be there. They listed a whole bunch of companies that will still be there. So it's still going to be like a week and a half or so. So it's still longer than a typical E3, but I do appreciate that, and it is a free conference. There's no cost. It's all digital this year, as it should be. It should be free, and it should be online, just to get people interested in it again, I think, and to meet people in the circumstances that we're in right now. But I think the summer of gaming is still happening. Like Jeff Keighley's still going to be doing something with his stuff. I don't know if it's going to, I hope it's not going to be spread out as much over the summer because there was just so much last year that was sort of piecemeal here and there, and like you'd forget that there were events for like 3-4 months in a row. I mean, I do kind of like having a more consolidated, even if it was like a week or two. Just having that one time of like, okay, this is majorly where I'm going to pay attention. We might have a stray Nintendo Direct, or we may have a stray, whatever conference somewhere else in the summer, which can be okay. Maybe we'll have another, I hope we have another Realms Deep this summer or this fall. That would be wonderful. But just to kind of consolidate that and make it a little bit easier for people to follow everything and not get too either overwhelmed or forget. So we'll definitely hear more about that. Again, I don't know. I'm probably only going to be doing the public version. I don't know that I'm going to be doing the press version. Again, I don't know if Microsoft and Nintendo and others are they going to do their press conference thingies or directs? Are they going to do them during the press days? Is that going to be a part of the public days? I don't know. We don't know that yet, but at least we do know there's a digital E3. We know what's happening, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, because there has been a little bit of, let's say, not excitement about working with the ESA lately. They've kind of bungled some things the last couple of years. I won't get into it here, but there's been a lot of questioning about the relevance and whatnot of E3 to begin with for a little while now. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. So I think that is about all I've got. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And again, after watching this, definitely, especially if you have any interest in games and game accessibility, check out these sessions from the Game Accessibility Conference. I will put the link in the description below. Great stuff here. You can follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. And so until next time, I will chat with you guys again later.